To address the elephant in the room before anybody says, yes, I've had a haircut. I really like it, but I tried a new styling technique and this is not it, but I'm not doing it again. So I promise it normally looks fine. This is a mess. If you want to see how it actually looks, look at my Instagram. Look at me actually posting a video on time for the first time in ages. I am going through the books that I read in 2023. I started last year tracking on Storygraph, which I absolutely love. So much better than Goodreads. It's independent, it's owned by a woman of colour, and it's just so much better at stats and everything. If you're still on Goodreads, would highly recommend changing over. Also, add me on Storygraph. My username is Voldycat, as it is literally everywhere else. So I'm going to go through what I read. The first thing I'm sure everybody really wants to know, 43 books is what I read last year. My goal was 42 and I read 43. This year, I guess last year, 2023, has been the best year that I've had for reading in quite some time. And a lot of that is down to reducing my phone screen time. More about that on my channel. You'll have seen that video by now. So we're going to start with audiobooks, I think. I think I normally do this by like star rating, but I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to do it by audiobooks, I think. 49% audiobooks this year, which comes to 21 books, and that is 268.27 hours. Now I also listen to a lot of podcasts, so I think this would dramatically change if you included podcasts, but as far as I'm aware there isn't any podcast tracking apps other than just like using Spotify to listen to them and like having your Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year. So if anyone knows of like a Storygraph / Goodreads style website that lets you track podcasts, let me know, because I'd really like to do that. Okay, well Storygraph seems to have assigned a completely arbitrary order to this list, so I guess I'll just read it out. So I read Ready Player 1, and that was because I wanted to read Ready Player 2, so I listened to the audiobook first to remind myself of what happened. Still excellent. It is a little bit dated. I don't think it was as good the second time around as when I first read it, but I did still really enjoy it, so I still recommend it. I gave it 4.5 stars. Mythos, the Greek Myths Retold by Stephen Fry. I really enjoy Stephen Fry's audiobooks. I don't know what it is about his reading. I love it, have always loved it. Listened to his recordings of Harry Potter when I was a kid, like obsessively every single night. I gave this 5 stars. The Body, A Guide for Occupants by Bill Bryson, which I also gave 5 stars. Now, this was an absolutely excellent book. A lot of the stuff in it I think I kind of already knew, as just like general knowledge, but the way that it was like laid out in this book was absolutely fantastic. Do not read it unless you wish to question your mortality and all of your health habits and everything like that, because it does not pull any punches at all. Like, I had a bit of an existential crisis listening to this book. It was fantastic, but yeah, pre-warning, it does get quite existential and it will probably make you reevaluate a lot of your life. The Queen's Gambit, which I gave 4.5 stars. I don't know if I agree with this. Thinking back at it, there was like some big sections which were quite technical, which I didn't quite enjoy as much. So I don't know if I actually agree with the 4.5 stars, but that's obviously what I thought at the time. Big Little Lies, which I believe is a HBO show, isn't it? But this is the book that it's based on. 4.75 stars. Really enjoyed it. It was like gossipy, but also like it wasn't gossip, like there was actual stakes, but it had like high school gossip vibes, except it was adults and had actual stakes and was entertaining and not just you being worried about friends because things are happening. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. It like tickles the part of my brain that likes gossip in a healthy way that doesn't actually involve real people's lives. Difficult Women, A History of Feminism in 11 Fights, which I gave 3 stars, and apparently I listened to in February and I remember nothing about this book, so clearly it didn't stick with me and I only gave it 3 stars. Stonewall, Breaking Out the Fight for Gay Rights, I gave that 3.75 stars. If I remember rightly about this, the information in it was really, I don't want to say useful, but like I enjoyed knowing it. It was information that I thought I should already know, but it wasn't a particularly well written audiobook. But maybe it wasn't designed to be listened to as an audiobook. You do have to bear that in mind a little bit, I think. City of Lost Souls, the 5th Mortal Instruments book, which I finished on October 20th. I thought I'd DNF'd this. apparently I didn't. So I've been re-listening to the Mortal Instruments series, just because I've been revisiting some books that I liked when I was a teenager to see if they still hold up. And the first three I really enjoyed. Apart from the whole, nobody seems to be that bothered about like the incest in it. First three books I really enjoyed. The next ones did not at all. Should have just stopped at 3. I think it's a classic example of a book doing well and then them wanting to like publish more. Should have stopped at 3. On a similar vein, The Hunger Games, which I gave 4.5 stars. I went to go see the new Hunger Games movie, and I wanted to I've listened to the audiobook and I wanted to update myself on what happens in the trilogy before I went to go see the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because I've already listened to that audiobook. So I challenged myself to listen to all 3 books in 3 days, and it turns out that is possible. I listened to it all on 1.5 speed, which I do anyway. And do you know what? That series really holds up. It is genuinely really, really good. If you read it when you were like a teenager, I'd really recommend reading it again, because there's so many really subtle political things in there that I think I understood when I was a teenager, but not as much as I do now. So yeah, if you're interested in like revisiting some books from your teenage years, really recommend rereading The Hunger Games, especially if you enjoyed the new movie. Gilded, which is the first book out of the Gilded series, by Marissa Meyer. I gave that 3.75 stars. If I remember rightly, this was a book where by the time I got to the end, I was just waiting to finish it rather than actually enjoying it, which happens with audiobooks sometimes, which is probably why it only got 3.75. City of Ashes, The Mortal Instruments Book 2, which I gave 3.75 stars. I did listen to these in order, but Storygraphers put them in a really weird order for some reason. Yeah, so maybe according to this, I gave that 3.75 stars. And I gave number 5 3 stars, so maybe I actually didn't enjoy the first 3 as much as I'm remembering. A Short History of Nearly Everything, I gave 4 stars. If I remember rightly, same thing again, is that there were lots of scenes which are over technical. Now, these things I think I can understand, but I'm normally listening to audiobooks walking to and from work, which means that my brain is easily distracted. So if there is long paragraphs of really technical stuff, I'm more likely to not fully grasp it because I'm not paying as much attention to it, which is a me thing. That's my problem. Crazy Rich Asians, which I really enjoyed, and I believe there's more than one, but I think my audiobook app, which is BorrowBox, only had the first one, so I'm holding out to see if they get the second one. Lessons in Chemistry, which I believe has just come out on Amazon Prime as a TV series. I gave 4.75 stars. I didn't like the characters as people. Most of them were highly unlikable, but the story I enjoyed. Heroes, which is the second book in the Stephen Fry's retelling of mythology, which I gave 4.75 stars. Again, love Stephen Fry, love mythology retellings. Always going to enjoy that. City of Glass, Mortal Instruments 3, I gave 4 stars. Mockingjay, book 3, which I gave 4 stars, so Mockingjay is the third book in the Hunger Games series. Undoctored, the story of a medic who ran out of patience. 4.5 stars. Does Adam Kay have another book? Yes, he wrote This Is Going to Hurt, which I really, really enjoyed as well. The Wonder, which I gave 4 stars. Massive trigger warning for like eating disorders. All the way through that book. It is intense. It was quite a good book, not really my normal style, but yeah, huge trigger warning on that. More Fool Me, which is the third memoir from Stephen Fry. Have I mentioned that I like Stephen Fry yet? I don't think he's a particularly nice person, is he? I don't know if I've made that up. I just really like his voice. Find it very relaxing. Catching Fire, which is the second Hunger Games book, which I gave 4 stars. And that is the end of the audiobooks. Well, let's do digital, because there's only 2 books in that category. One of them is a secret book, which I can't tell you about, but I really enjoyed. Gave it 5 stars. I'll say no more on that. The other one is We Are Full Hair, which I gave 3 stars. It was like one of those free books that you can like find online occasionally. And it was another book where I found myself just wanting to finish it rather than enjoying. I read 20 print books this year, so let's go through them. These are not print books. I have categorised these wrong. 1 second, I'm going to edit this because it looks like I've categorised some things wrong. Okay, so I've updated it, so just a quick update on the stats. I actually only read 18 physical books. I listened to 23 audiobooks, which changed the percentage to 53% audiobooks and 42% print books. So to the two audiobooks which were categorised wrong were Cursed, which was the second book in the Gilded series, which I believe I felt the same way about, was just kind of trying to finish. I really like Marissa Meyer. Maybe I would have benefited from reading a physical book. I tend to prefer physical books for fantasy than audiobooks, so maybe that was my fault there. The next book was, I believe, the third Mortal Instruments book, whichever one I haven't mentioned, which again was the same thing. I probably would have benefited from reading it, but I don't really like rereading physical books, just because I prefer to take my time with physical books, and I don't want to waste time on something that I've already read when there is so many other stories out there. And because audiobooks I can listen to in like 2 or 3 days, I was re-listening to them that way. Maybe I need to just stop listening to fantasy audiobooks and keep sticking to like non-fiction, which tends to be my favourite genre when it comes to audiobooks, which is interesting. Do you guys have a preference for genres for audiobooks versus physical books? And maybe if you don't, and you've decided that you don't like audiobooks or you don't like physical books, maybe try a different genre. Maybe that's the thing, because I never used to like memoirs, for example, and I really enjoy listening to them, but I don't like reading them at all. So maybe give that a go if you haven't thought about it before. Okay, so actually on to the print books that I read this year. We have 18. Again, this doesn't appear to be in any kind of an order, so I'm just going to read it in the order that Storygraph have got it. Gleanings, which is they've called it book 3.5 from the Scythe trilogy. It's basically just like a spin-off. It doesn't really come anywhere in the order. I really enjoyed it. It's a book of short stories. I do generally enjoy short stories. I also I had a friend who really wanted to read this, so I annotated it for them so that they could read my thoughts while they were reading it. And I hope if you're watching this, I hope you enjoyed that or are enjoying that. Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, which people have been asking me to read for so long because they want me to watch the movie, and I still haven't watched the movie, and I finished this in May. But that's because I want to watch it with like the people who've been bugging me to watch it, and they haven't organised it. So if you're watching this, I read it for you. Organise watching the movie. Anyway, I gave that 3.75 stars. I really like Stephen King. If you know me, I normally really enjoy Stephen King books, but this one just didn't have enough like fantasy elements in it for me. That's why I enjoy Stephen King, and this was, I don't know, it's a very different vibe from all the different Stephen King books I've read, and I really enjoy the vibe of Stephen King books, which means that I probably wasn't destined to like this, but maybe I'll like the movie. Rebuilding Tomorrow, which I gave 4 stars, which is a series of short stories about dealing with disability in a dystopian future. Very, very interesting concept. Every single author had a different take on it. Really, really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 5 stars because some of the stories I enjoyed more than others, which is just, it's every short story is by a different author, so that's just going to happen. But as a concept, fantastic, would really recommend. Anatomy, a love story by Dana Schwartz. It is the first book in the series. I already have the second one, plan to read it relatively soon. I gave this 4 stars. Too romance heavy for me, which sounds ridiculous because it's all called Anatomy, a love story. But the love story element is kind of like a love story with anatomy as well as like the romance element. I just don't massively like romance, but everything else around it I enjoyed. The Faceless Old Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your Home, which is the third Night Vale book, which I gave 4.25 stars. I think I read this very quickly. All of the Night Vale books, or books by Jeffrey Craner and Joseph Fink, like Alice Isn't Dead, creep me out so much that I have to read them really quickly because I want to get to the conclusion so I can stop being creeped out by them. This one was less creepy. Alice Isn't Dead kept me awake. Salem's Lot, which is, I believe, the longest book I read this year at 631 pages. I gave it 4.25 stars. It's about vampires and it's by Stephen King. What's not to love? Queen's Gambit, which is the first book in the Tudor trilogy. There we go. By Elizabeth Fremantle. It is the only book I've ever read by her. I normally don't like historical fiction, but I had this book lying around. I don't know where I got it, but I had it lying around. I gave it 4 stars. I might read the next one. Again, I don't normally like historical fiction, but I think I enjoyed it enough to maybe read the next one. 4 stars is quite a lot. Convenience Store Woman, which I also gave 4 stars. This was very short, 163 pages. I think I read it in like 2 days. Very interesting book. I don't think I've ever read a book in a similar style. It's sort of about, like, autism and also a little bit about like incels. But none of that is actually said. I believe is a translation from Japanese, which is also going to give it a slightly different style. The Cat Who Saved Books, which I apparently didn't give a star rating. Normally that's because it didn't sit with me enough to give it a star rating. I only really give it if it's got really strong opinions, which means it's probably like a 3-star. It was kind of fun. It was fun, yeah. It's sort of about like reading and like there's like a fantasy element to it. I feel like it might have been aimed at a slightly younger audience than me, but like it was a fun book. Dancing on the Grave, which I should have loved because it's about death, but this was just written in such a dry way. It was more like a memoir than a book about different cultures. It kind of had some like casual racism in there as well. It just wasn't, I mean it came out in 1998, so maybe it's just dated. But I've just read a lot of books about death and death culture, and this one didn't particularly grab me. I gave it 2.75 stars. The Green Mile, which I gave 5 stars, really enjoyed. Again, it's not Stephen King's normal style, and I read it because people wanted me to watch the movie, which I still haven't watched. 433 pages, which is a much more comfortable length for me. But I did really enjoy it. Gave it 5 stars. I think I had quite a few 5-star reads this year. I think I've been quite liberal with my stars. How to Live Like Your Cat, which I gave 2.5 stars. It was really patronising and gave advice that is really common and did not give anything particularly insightful. Past Mortems, A Life and Death Behind Mortuary Doors by Carla Valentine. Now, I don't know if Carla Valentine is a pseudonym, but if you've got a name like Carla Valentine, like you have to be a mortician, right? That's just such a great mortician name. I gave it 4.5 stars. I just like books about death and death culture. Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. It felt really forced. Nowhere near as good as the first one. I still gave it 3.75 stars, so I didn't hate it, but it was so clearly like, oh, the first book did really well, so now I'm going to force out a sequel so that I can monopolise on this. Roadside Picnic, which is from the Sci-Fi Masterworks series, which I gave 3.5 stars. I'm going to be honest, the writing style of this had me lost for a lot of it. I was reading it like before bed, so I was probably just not like concentrating a lot. You Will Get Through This Night by Daniel Howell. 4 stars. I think it gave very good advice, and normally I wouldn't read a book like this. It's sort of like, I think they said a practical mental health guide. I think there are some people who will read this and it is exactly what they need, but it is really basic mental health advice, I think. It is quite practical. It does give you very straightforward things. I would not have read this if it wasn't by Dan Howell though. I think I bought it just to like support him. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars, but I think it was more 4 stars for somebody else who would need it rather than 4 stars for my reading experience, if that makes sense. The Space Between Us, Poetry and Prose, which I read and annotated. It is a book of poems about being in a long-distance relationship, so I'll let you work out why I read and annotated it. And then last on this list is Homeless Heritage, Collaborative Social Archaeology as Therapeutic Practice by Rachel Kiddy. I read this for my dissertation, but I unironically think that like a lot of people should read this. It was written so well and would just work as a book by itself. I gave it 4.75 stars. Okay, so this video is always getting really long, but I think I've stopped caring about video length, to be honest. I read a lot of books and I want to talk about them, so... But to give you some stats, I read 21 adventurous books. I should say that books can be classified as more than one thing. So 21 adventurous, 12 dark, 11 reflective, 10 emotional, 9 funny, 8 tense, 8 mysterious, 7 informative, and then it just gets to like little tiny ones. 73% of the books that I read were medium pace, 15 were fast, and 5 were slow. I only read 5 books that were 500 plus pages, because I'm not a massive fan of really long books. 28% or 12 books were 300 or less, and 60%, which is 26 books, were 300 to 500 pages. 28% non-fiction and 31% fiction. Top genre is young adult at 11, and then fantasy at 10. Dystopian, science fiction and history all tied at 5. Most read author is Cassandra Clare, because I listened to 4 of those books. And then followed by 3 Stephen King, 3 Stephen Fry, 3 Suzanne Collins, 2 Marissa Meyer, 2 Bill Bryson and 2 Ernest Cline. I will put up a graph right here of when I read the most books. And I will also put a graph here of how my star ratings came out. Yeah, it looks like I was quite liberal with my stars. I gave a lot more higher ratings than lower ratings, which of course is absolutely excellent. What did you guys read? I hope some people have made it to the end of this half an hour long video. I'm gonna have fun editing it. But what was your guys' favourite books? Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you think. I'm also genuinely curious about genres and print/audiobooks, so let me know if you feel the same way about any of that. New videos twice a month-ish, if I can do. Yeah, talk to me down in the comments. This is one of my favourite things to talk about, so yeah, talk to me down in the comments. Follow me on Storygraph. I'm at Voldycat. I'll put a link down in the description to the website and also my account. So yeah, see you next time. Bye.